The great crystal spires of Thessara Prime gleamed under the light of three suns, their surfaces reflecting colors that no human eye had ever seen. The city stretched across floating platforms that hovered above misty clouds, connected by bridges of pure light. This was the crown jewel of the Vellani Republic, home to 12 billion peaceful souls who had never known true war. Counselor Yuna stood at the center of the High Council chamber, her crystalline features catching the soft glow of the eternal flames that had burned for 1,000 years. Her people were tall and graceful, with skin that looked like polished gemstone and eyes that held the wisdom of ages. They were herbivores, philosophers, artists. They built cities of beauty and spent their long lives creating music that could make stars weep. But today there was no beauty in the chamber, only fear. "The reports are confirmed," Yuna said, her voice carrying the weight of impending doom. "The Krovar swarm has consumed Helios Station. Every living thing on 3 worlds, gone." The council members shifted in their crystal chairs, their light bodies flickering with distress. Elder Jisoo, the oldest among them, spoke first. His voice was like wind through crystal chimes. "How long until they reach us?" Communications Officer Minho stepped forward from his position at the great viewing screen. He was young for a counselor, barely 300 years old, but his skills with galactic communications were unmatched. The screen behind him showed a map of their 3-system republic. 2 of the systems were now marked in the black of death. "Based on their current speed and consumption rate, the swarm will reach our outer defenses in 6 days, Minho said. "Our homeworld, 4 days after that." Silence filled the chamber like a poison. The Vellani had always been peaceful. Their ships were built for exploration and trade, not war. Their weapons were designed to stun, not kill. They had never needed to be warriors because they had never met anything that wanted to hurt them, until now. "What do we know about these creatures?" asked Counselor Daihi, her crystal hands trembling slightly. Elder Jisoo activated a hologram in the center of the chamber. The image that appeared made several council members step back in horror. The Krovar were insects, but insects the size of battleships. Their bodies were black and twisted, covered in sharp spines and dripping with acid. They traveled in swarms of thousands, their bioships pulsing with organic life. "They are parasites," Jisoo explained. "They land on worlds and consume everything that lives. Plants, animals, even the soil itself. They grow stronger with each world they devour, and when there is nothing left to eat, they move on to the next system." "Our defense fleet?" Yuna asked, though she already knew the answer. 37 ships, Minho replied. "The Krovar swarm has over 300 biovessels, each one larger than our biggest ship. Our weapons cannot even scratch their shells." Another silence. Longer this time. The weight of extinction pressed down on them all. "We could evacuate," suggested Counselor Wanho. "Load the transport ships, flee to the outer colonies." "Where?" Dahi asked. "They follow the scent of life. No matter where we run, they will find us eventually." Yuna closed her eyes and felt the despair of her people. 12 billion souls looking to their leaders for hope. But what hope was there? The Vellani had built a civilization on peace and beauty. They had never learned to be monsters. "There are stories," Minho said suddenly. The chamber turned to look at him. "Legends from the Outer Rim, about a species that comes from a death world." Elder Jisoo's eyes narrowed. "You speak of myths, child." "Maybe," Minho continued. "But I have heard the same stories from traders across 7 sectors. They call them the Deathworlders. They say these beings come from a world so dangerous that simply living there turns them into warriors." "Even if such creatures exist," Dahi said, "why would they help us?" "Because," Minho's voice grew stronger, "the stories say they hunt monsters. They say that to them, creatures like the Krovar are just another pest to be removed." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some counselors called it madness. Others demanded details. Elder Jisoo stood and raised his hand for silence. "These are children's tales," he said firmly. "Stories to frighten the young. No species becomes warriors simply by living on a harsh world. But what if they are real? Yuna asked. What if somewhere in the galaxy, there are beings who can fight things like the Crovar and win? Even if they exist, Jisoo continued. What makes you think they would help us? Warriors care only for conquest and death. We would be trading one monster for another. Minho stepped closer to the center of the chamber. The stories say they protect the weak, that they have a code of honor that makes them defend those who cannot defend themselves. Stories, Jisoo's voice echoed off the crystal walls. Would you stake the lives of our entire civilization on children's stories? What choice do we have? Yuna asked quietly. In 10 days, our people will be dead or consumed by the swarm. If these deathworlders exist, even if they are as dangerous as you fear, what could be worse than extinction? The debate continued for hours. Some counselors argued for evacuation. Others wanted to surrender and hope the Crovar would be merciful. A few suggested trying to negotiate. But as the hours passed and the reports kept coming in, the situation became clearer. The Crovar had been detected in the Meridian system, consuming the agricultural worlds there. They were coming faster than predicted. Time grows short, Yuna announced as the day cycle ended. We must decide. Do we flee and hope they do not follow? Do we surrender and hope they show mercy? Or do we take a chance on legends and send a message to the unknown? Minho approached his communications console. I have been scanning the galactic databases. The stories all point to the same region of space. A small yellow star with a single inhabited world. The local inhabitants call it Earth. The galactic code is Sol 3. A single world? Counselor Wanho asked. One planet against the swarm? The stories say this world is so dangerous that its inhabitants had to become perfect killers just to survive, Minho explained. They say the weather alone can kill you. The animals hunt in packs. Even the plants are poisonous. And the dominant species, they say the dominant species learned to hunt everything else. Elder Jisoo shook his head. Impossible. No world could be that hostile and still support complex life. The Galactic Survey confirms it, Minho said, reading from his screen. Sol 3 is classified as a Class 12 death world. Extreme weather patterns, predatory ecosystem, toxic atmosphere composition, and yet it supports a technological civilization. What are they called? Yuna asked. Humans, Minho replied. They call themselves humans. The word sent a strange chill through the chamber. It was simple, basic, but somehow it carried weight. Like a sword being drawn from its sheath. I will not be part of contacting these humans, Elder Jisoo announced. If they are real, and if they are what you think they are, then we will have awakened something that should have stayed sleeping. Some doors should never be opened. Several other council members agreed with him, but as the night wore on and the reports grew worse, more and more counselors began to see the logic in Minho's plan. Finally, as the first sun began to rise over Thessera Prime, Yuna called for a vote, all in favor of sending a message to the Sol system. Hands rose around the chamber. Yuna counted them carefully. 17 votes. All opposed? More hands. 15 votes. The chamber was silent for a long moment. The motion passes, Yuna announced. Minho, prepare your message. Minho's hands shook as he activated the long-range communications array. This was either salvation or the worst mistake in Vellani history. Maybe both. What should I tell them? He asked. Yuna looked around the chamber at her fellow counselors. Some looked hopeful. Others looked terrified. All of them looked desperate. Tell them the truth, she said. We are dying. The swarm comes. We have nowhere left to run. And if the stories about them are true, we need their help. Minho began to type the message. His fingers moved slowly, carefully choosing each word. This might be the last message the Vellani Republic ever sent. Message composed, he announced. Send it, Yuna ordered. The great communication array turned toward the distant Sol system. Energy gathered in its crystal core, building to a crescendo that would carry their desperate plea across the galaxy. Message transmitted, Minho said. If anyone in the Sol system is listening, they will receive it in approximately 6 hours. How long for a response? Dahi asked. If they decide to respond at all, Minho replied. It could be anywhere from 12 hours to several days. Yuna nodded. Then we wait. Outside the chamber, the three sons of Thesera Prime continued their eternal dance. The crystal spires gleamed as they had for 1,000 years. Children played in the floating gardens while their parents worked in the workshops below. None of them knew that their leaders had just sent a message to the most dangerous species in the galaxy. None of them knew that somewhere in the darkness between stars something had heard their call. The Crovar swarm continued its approach, confident that this would be just another easy meal. They had never met resistance before. Every species they encountered either fled in terror or surrendered without a fight. They had never met humans. In the depths of space, racing toward them on solar winds, a simple message traveled through the void. Words that would change the fate of entire worlds. We are dying. The Admiral Hannah Park stood in the command center of the Terran Defense Force, 3 kilometers beneath the Colorado Mountains. The facility had been carved from solid rock, designed to survive anything from asteroid impacts to supervolcanic eruptions. To humans, this was just common sense. If you were going to build something important, you built it to last. The message from the Volani Republic glowed on the main screen. Hannah read it for the 4th time, her dark eyes narrowing as she processed the information. Around her, officers from every branch of Earth's military were gathering for an emergency briefing. Analysis complete, Admiral, reported Captain Kyung-ho Kim as he entered the briefing room. Kyung-ho was the commanding officer of the Dreadnought Incheon's Fury, one of humanity's newest and most powerful warships. He was tall for a human, with the calm demeanor that came from years of commanding vessels in hostile environments. What do we know about these Crovar? Hannah asked. Commander Sohee Lee, the fleet's chief xenobiologist, activated a holographic display in the center of the room. The image showed a detailed analysis of the creatures mentioned in the Volani message. Cross-referencing with our xenological databases, Sohee explained, the Crovar matched descriptions of a species we encountered in the Kepler 442 system 17 years ago. We designated them Hostile Biological Entity Type 7 in our files, Aiwei. Remember that incident? Kyung-ho said grimly. They had consumed 3 colony worlds before we arrived. What happened to them? Asked Major Do-hyun Choi, the chief engineer responsible for maintaining the fleet's weapon systems. Complete elimination, Sohee replied matter-of-factly. Standard Protocol 7. We sterilized their breeding colonies, destroyed their bioships, and made their preferred habitat zones uninhabitable. Threat was neutralized within 6 weeks. The room fell silent for a moment. To the humans gathered there, this was simply military history. They had encountered a dangerous species, assessed the threat and removed it. Efficient, clean, final. Sir, interrupted Lieutenant Wu Bin-han from the communications station, we're receiving additional data from our long-range scouts. The Volani weren't exaggerating their situation. This Crovar swarm is massive, over 300 biovessels, detected heading straight for their home system. Hannah walked to the main display and studied the tactical readout. The Volani Republic controlled 3 star systems, but 2 were already showing signs of complete consumption. The final system, containing their homeworld, would be reached by the swarm in less than 10 days. Fleet status report, she ordered. 7th, fleet is currently at full combat readiness, reported Colonel Nari Song, the Marine commander responsible for ground operations. 15 dreadnoughts, full crew complements, all ships showing green across the board. 8th and 9th fleets are conducting training exercises in the Proxima sector, added Captain Jinwoo Park, the fleet's tactical coordinator. They could be recalled within 48 hours if additional firepower is needed. 1 fleet should be sufficient, Hannah said, studying the enemy numbers. 300 biovessels. That's actually smaller than the swarm we eliminated at Kepler 442. Should we send a scout ship first? Suggested Commander Minji. Oh, the fleet's intelligence officer. Gather more detailed reconnaissance before committing to full engagement. No time, Hannah replied. By the time a scout ship reaches their system, conducts reconnaissance, and reports back, the Villani will be dead. We deploy immediately. The officers around the table began making preparations. For humans, this was a routine response to a distress call. They had been responding to alien SOS messages for nearly 2 centuries, ever since humanity had developed faster-than-light travel and discovered that the galaxy was full of species that had never learned to defend themselves properly. "Admiral," so he spoke up, "there's something else you should know about the Villani. According to the xenological profiles, they're complete pacifists. They've never engaged in warfare of any kind. Their ships don't even have weapons." "At all?" Kyung-ho asked, surprised. "Their entire defense consists of 37 unarmed exploration vessels. They've never needed weapons because they've never encountered anything hostile before." "Poor bastards," muttered Major Do-hyun. "First time, they meet real predators and it has to be the Crowvar." "Which is exactly why we're going," Hana said firmly. "They asked for help from the Deathworlders. They're going to get it." The preparation began immediately. Throughout the Sol system, 15 massive dreadnoughts received priority deployment orders. These were not the sleek, elegant vessels that other species built. Human warships were brutal, functional things. They looked like what they were: weapons designed to survive in the most hostile environments imaginable and deliver overwhelming firepower to anything that threatened them. The flagship, Seoul's Thunder, began warming its fusion reactors within minutes of receiving the order. Its hull was nearly 2 kilometers long and armored with composite plating that could withstand the pressure of gas giant atmospheres. Its weapon systems were capable of sterilizing entire continents if necessary. "Crew status?" Hana asked as she boarded her flagship. "All hands reporting ready for departure," replied her executive officer, Commander Tae-hyun Lim. "Navigation has plotted a course to the Villani system. Estimated travel time, 3 days, 4 hours. Engineering reports all systems optimal," added Chief Engineer Yanwoo Kim. "Fusion reactors at full power, hyperspace generators charging. Weapon systems green across the board," reported Master Gunnery Sergeant Taeyang Yu. "All 15 ships are loaded with full combat payloads." Hana settled into her command chair and looked at the tactical display. 15 human dreadnoughts against 300 alien bioships. To any other species in the galaxy, this would seem like impossible odds. To humans, it was a fairly typical Tuesday. "Fleet Command, this is Admiral Park. 7th Fleet is ready for departure." "Copy, 7th Fleet. You are cleared for hyperspace transition. Good hunting, Admiral." "Thank you, Control. See you in a week." The 15 ships of the 7th Fleet activated their hyperspace drives simultaneously. Space twisted around them, folding in ways that violated several laws of physics, but worked perfectly well for anyone who understood the mathematics involved. In the space of a heartbeat, the most powerful battle fleet in human history vanished from the Sol system. Behind them, on Earth, the routine of daily life continued unchanged. 15 dreadnoughts had just departed to wage war against an alien swarm, and barely anyone noticed. Humanity had become very good at war over the millennia, and very casual about it as well. In the Villani system, Counselor Yuna stood in the observation chamber of the High Council, watching the stars. It had been 18 hours since they sent their message to the Sol system. No response yet, but that was expected. Even if the humans decided to help, it would take time. "Counselor." Communications Officer Minho approached, his crystalline features reflecting worry. "We've received new data from our scout ships. The Crowvar swarm has accelerated. They'll reach our outer defenses in 4 days, not 6. Yuna's heart sank. "Any word from the humans?" "None yet. But the message would have only reached their system 6 hours ago. Even if they responded immediately, we wouldn't hear back for several more hours." "And if they don't respond at all?" Minho was quiet for a moment. "Then we have 4 days to evacuate as many people as possible." Across the chamber, Elder Jisoo approached them. "I have been consulting the ancient records," he said. "There are references to species like this Crowvar from our earliest explorations of deep space. They are called swarm devourers in the old texts. What do the records say about fighting them? Yuna asked. They don't, Jisoo replied grimly. Every species that encountered them was consumed. The records only exist because a few ships managed to escape and warn others. The weight of impending doom settled over them again. The Vellani were a species that had spent millions of years perfecting art, music, philosophy. They had built cities that floated among the clouds and written poetry that could make flowers bloom out of season, but they had never learned to kill. There is one thing, Jisoo continued. The oldest records mention something called the apex predator principle. It suggests that in nature, there is always something higher on the food chain, always something that hunts the hunters. You think the humans might be that something? Yuna asked. I don't know, Jisoo admitted. But if they are real, if they are what the stories claim, then they might be our only hope. Meanwhile, racing through hyperspace toward them, 15 human dreadnoughts maintained their course. The crews went about their duties with calm efficiency. They checked weapons systems, ran battle simulations, and prepared for combat against an enemy they had fought before. In the medical bay of Seoul's Thunder, Dr. Hee-jin Park was preparing trauma kits and surgical supplies, not because she expected heavy casualties among the human crews, but because the Krovar sometimes took prisoners, and those prisoners were rarely found in good condition when rescued. In the Marine barracks, Sergeant Sun Woo-yoon was cleaning his combat armor and checking his weapons. He had fought Krovar before in the tunnels beneath a colony world on the rim. They were tough, but they died, just like everything else when you shot them enough times. In the engine rooms, teams of engineers, led by Commander Hyunsoo Kim the space around Thesara Prime shimmered with defensive energy fields as the Vellani prepared for the end. Their 37 ships, beautiful vessels of crystal and light, took positions around their homeworld. They were not warships, but they were all the Vellani had. Counselor Yuna stood in the command center of the orbital defense station, watching the tactical displays with growing despair. The Krovar swarm was now only 6 hours away, a writhing mass of bioships that blotted out the stars. 300 vessels of living nightmare, each one larger than anything the Vellani had ever built. Still no response from the humans? She asked for the 20th time. Communications Officer Minho shook his head, his crystalline features dim with exhaustion. Nothing. Either they cannot help us, or they chose not to respond. Perhaps it is for the best, Elder Jisoo said quietly. If the stories about them were true, they might have been worse than the Krovar. How could anything be worse than extinction? Yuna replied. Before Jisoo could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Astronomer Wu Bin-han looked up from his instruments with confusion written across his face. Counselor, I'm detecting massive hyperspace signatures approaching the system, but these aren't Krovar bioships. More refugees from other systems? Yuna asked hopefully. No, these are... I don't understand what I'm seeing. The energy signatures are enormous. Whatever's coming, it's big. Very big. The main display activated, showing the edge of their star system. Space began to ripple and twist as something prepared to exit hyperspace. The distortions were unlike anything the Vellani had ever recorded. 15 separate signatures. Wubin reported, his voice filled with awe. Each one larger than our biggest space station. Reality tore open like fabric being ripped apart. 15 massive shapes emerged from the hyperspace vortex, their hulls reflecting the light of the Vellani suns. They were angular, brutal things, covered in armor plating and weapon emplacements. They looked exactly like what they were. Instruments of war designed by a species that had perfected the art of killing. By the eternal flames, Yuna whispered. What are those things? The largest of the newcomers, a 2-kilometer behemoth bristling with weapons, activated its communication array. A voice filled the command center, speaking an accented but understandable Vellani standard. Thesara Prime Control. This is Admiral Hana Park of the Terran Defense Force commanding the 7th Fleet. We received your distress call. Please identify yourself and provide tactical information on the hostile forces approaching your system. The command center fell silent. For a moment, no one could speak. Then Yuna stepped forward to the communication console. Admiral Park, this is Counselor Yuna of the Valani High Council. You actually came. You sent an SOS, came the reply. We always respond to SOS calls. What's your situation? The Krovar swarm will reach us in 5 hours. 300 bioships. Our defenses are minimal. Understood. We're detecting the hostile force on our sensors. Deploying to intercept. Please maintain your position and avoid the combat zone. Yuna looked around at her fellow counselors. Admiral, we should warn you. The Krovar have never been defeated. They have consumed entire civilizations. Your 15 ships against their 300. There was a pause. Then something that sounded almost like laughter came through the communication system. Counselor, we appreciate the concern, but 300 bioships is actually a fairly light engagement for us. We've handled swarms 3 times that size. Just stay clear of the battle zone and let us work. The communication ended. On the tactical display, the 15 human ships began moving into formation. They advanced toward the approaching Krovar swarm with steady, deliberate precision. They're insane, Elder Jisoo said. 15 ships against 300? They'll be destroyed. But Astronomer Wubin was studying his instruments with growing amazement. The energy readings from those ships. Counselor, each one of those human vessels is outputting more power than our entire defense grid. What are they? Dreadnoughts, came a new voice. Captain Kyung-ho Kim of the Inchen's Fury had opened a separate communication channel. We're capital ships of the Terran Defense Force. Each vessel carries enough firepower to sterilize a planet. Sterilize a planet? Yuna repeated in shock. Standard equipment, Kyung-ho replied casually. We build our ships to handle any threat, including ones like your Krovar friends. You've fought them before? Several times. They're persistent but not particularly clever. We eliminated a similar swarm in the Kepler system a few years back. Same basic tactics should work here. Yuna felt a chill run through her crystalline body. These humans spoke of destroying entire worlds, as if it were routine maintenance. What? Had they called for help? The tactical display updated as the human fleet continued its advance. The ships moved in perfect formation, their massive hulls cutting through space like predators stalking prey. Behind them, the Krovar swarm writhed and pulsed, a living mass of organic death that had devoured countless civilizations. Human fleet. This is Swarm Voice Primary, came a new transmission. The voice was like breaking glass mixed with screaming wind. You will withdraw immediately or be consumed. We are the Krovar. We are inevitable. We are eternal. All life feeds the swarm. Admiral Hana's response was calm and professional. Unknown biological entities, you have entered this system without permission and are threatening a peaceful civilization. You have 30 seconds to withdraw before we classify you as hostile combatants. You cannot threaten us, small flesh things. We have devoured worlds. We have consumed stars. You are nothing. 20 seconds. We will add your ships to our swarm. Your crews will feed our young. Your worlds will burn. 10 seconds. The Krovar response was predictable. The entire swarm accelerated toward the human fleet, their bioships extending weapon pods and acid cannons. They had never met resistance they couldn't overwhelm with sheer numbers. Time's up, Hana announced. All ships, weapons free. Let's clean up this pest problem. What happened next would be remembered by the Valani for generations. The human dreadnoughts opened fire simultaneously, and space filled with light. Theory. Weapons that humanity had developed were not elegant or beautiful. They were brutal. Efficient tools designed to destroy anything they were pointed at. Plasma cannons that burned at the temperature of stellar cores. Kinetic impactors that hit with the force of asteroid impacts. Energy beams that could cut through the hulls of enemy ships like knives through paper. The first salvo from the human fleet destroyed 30 Krovar bioships instantly. The second salvo killed another 40. By the time the third salvo fired, the Krovar were screaming. Impossible, shrieked Swarm Voice Primary. Our shells are impenetrable. Our bio-armor cannot be breached. You haven't met humans before, replied Captain Kyung-ho as his ship's main guns reduced a Krovar destroyer to burning fragments. We specialize in breaching things that can't be breached. The battle was unlike anything the Villani had ever witnessed. Their own conflicts, rare as they were, had been polite affairs involving stunning weapons and capture protocols. This was something else entirely. This was total war waged by beings who had perfected it. The human ships moved with deadly coordination. When Krovar bioships tried to swarm individual dreadnoughts, the other human vessels would provide covering fire. When the bioships attempted to use their superior numbers to surround the humans, the dreadnoughts would shift formation and concentrate their firepower on the largest threats. "Look at how they fight," Wubin said in amazement. "It's like they've done this 1,000 times before." They have, Yuna realized. This is what they are. This is what they do. On the human ships, the crews worked with calm efficiency. Weapons Officer Jin-Woo Park coordinated targeting solutions while Tactical Officer Min-ji-oh managed fleet formations. Chief Engineer Do-Yun Choi kept the power flowing to the massive guns, while Commander So-hee Lee analyzed Krovar weaknesses in real time. "Hostiles are attempting to break off and retreat," reported Commander Tae-hyun Lim from the flagship's bridge. "Negative," Admiral Hana replied. "We don't chase off pests, we eliminate them. All ships, pursue and destroy. Don't let a single bioship escape this system." The Krovar, for the first time in their species' history, were learning what fear meant. Their swarm voice communications filled with panic as more and more bioships were destroyed. "They fight like demons," screamed Swarm Voice Secondary. "Their weapons burn through everything, they show no mercy. Fall back. Fall back. We must regroup." But there was nowhere to retreat to. The human dreadnoughts spread out across the system, hunting down fleeing bioships with methodical precision. Every Krovar vessel that tried to escape was tracked, targeted, and destroyed. "This is Sol's Thunder," announced Admiral Hana. "Target the bioship clusters near the fourth planet. Don't let them use the gravity well to escape." "Copy, Admiral." Busan Defiant moving to intercept. "Gwangju's Wrath, take your squadron and sweep the asteroid field. Some of them are trying to hide among the rocks." "Understood. Moving to flush them out." The Villani watched in stunned silence as the human fleet systematically destroyed every single Krovar bioship in their system. What had seemed like an impossible battle became a routine extermination operation. "How are they doing this?" Elder Jisoo asked in wonder. "They're hunters." The debris field that had once been the Krovar swarm stretched across the Thesara system like a graveyard of nightmares. Chunks of bioship hull drifted in the void, their organic surfaces still twitching with dying neural activity. The human dreadnoughts moved through the wreckage with systematic precision, their sensors scanning for any sign of surviving Krovar. Admiral Hana Park stood on the bridge of Sol's Thunder, studying the tactical displays with the calm focus of a predator that had successfully defended its territory. Around her, the crew continued their post-battle procedures with the same professional efficiency they had shown during the combat. "Sensor sweep complete, Admiral," reported Commander Tae-hyun Lim. "No active biosignatures detected in the primary debris field." "What about the outer system?" Hana asked. "Clean. If any Krovar escaped, they're running dark and dead. Our deep space sensors would detect them if they tried to activate their biodrives." Hana nodded. This was standard protocol after a Krovar engagement. The creatures were known for playing dead and launching surprise attacks days or weeks after an apparent defeat. Human doctrine called for complete verification of enemy destruction. "Ma'am," interrupted Communications Officer Lieutenant Wubin Han. "We're receiving a transmission from the Villani High Council. They're requesting permission to approach and express their gratitude." Hana considered this. First contact protocols with recently rescued civilizations could be delicate. Many species found humans intimidating even after being saved by them. The fact that the Villani wanted to approach was actually a good sign. Grant permission for a single diplomatic vessel. Standard escort protocols. 20 minutes later, a graceful Villani ship approached the human flagship. It was a thing of beauty, its crystal hull reflecting the starlight in patterns that shifted like flowing water. To human eyes, it looked fragile as butterfly wings. To the Villani, It represented their finest engineering achievement. Counselor Yuna, Elder Jizu, and Communications Officer Minho transported aboard Soul's Thunder, their first time ever setting foot on an alien vessel. What they found challenged every assumption they had made about the mysterious Deathworlders. The corridors of the Dreadnought were wide and well lit, but they were also clearly built for function over form. Everything was reinforced, armored, designed to keep working even under the most extreme conditions. The walls were lined with emergency equipment and damage control systems. This was a ship built to survive in hell itself. Welcome aboard. Admiral Hana greeted them in the main conference room. She was smaller than the Villani had expected, but there was something in her dark eyes that spoke of absolute confidence and competence. I'm Admiral Park. These are my senior officers. The introductions were surreal for both sides. The Villani found themselves face to face with beings that looked remarkably similar to themselves, despite coming from a world legendary for its hostility. The humans, for their part, were curious about a species that had developed advanced spaceflight without ever learning warfare. Admiral, Yuna began, we came to thank you for saving our people, but also to understand. How did you destroy the Krovar so easily? They had consumed entire civilizations. Captain Kyung-ho Kim answered first. The Krovar rely on intimidation in overwhelming numbers. They're used to fighting species that panic and break formation. We don't panic. But your weapons, Elder Jisoo said. They cut through Krovar bioarmor like it was nothing. How is that possible? Commander So-hee Lee activated a holographic display showing the technical specifications of human weaponry. We design our weapons based on what we encounter in nature on our homeworld. Krovar bioarmor is tough, but it's organic. We have creatures on Earth with similar defensive capabilities. You fight creatures like the Krovar on your own world? Minho asked in disbelief. Not exactly like them, So-hee admitted. But we have predators that use similar tactics. Swarm hunters, acid spitters, things with natural armor plating. Our ancestors learned to deal with them using tools and coordination. We just scaled up the tools. The Villani were beginning to understand something that chilled them to their crystal cores. To humans, the Krovar weren't some unstoppable force of nature. They were just another predator to be dealt with, like dangerous animals on their homeworld. There's something else, Yuna said hesitantly. Our long-range sensors detected Krovar bioships fleeing toward the Meridian system. Will they be back? Admiral Hana exchanged glances with her officers. No, they won't be back. How can you be certain? Because we're going to hunt them down and eliminate them completely, Captain Kyung-ho said matter-of-factly. The casual way he said it made the Villani step back. You're going to pursue them? Across multiple star systems? Standard protocol, Admiral Hana explained. When we encounter a species like the Krovar, we don't just drive them off. We eliminate the entire population. Complete species extinction. That's genocide, Elder Jisoo said quietly. The human officers looked at him with expressions that weren't angry or defensive, just mildly surprised. Yes, Admiral Hana said simply. It is. How can you speak of it so calmly? Commander So-hee stepped forward. Elder Jisoo, may I ask you a question? If you had a disease that was spreading through your population, killing your children, would you try to cure some of the disease and leave the rest alone? Of course not. We would eliminate the disease completely. The Krovar are a disease, So-hee said. They consume entire civilizations. They reproduce by killing everything else around them. They cannot be reasoned with, they cannot be reformed, and they will never stop spreading. The only ethical response is complete elimination. But they're sentient beings, Yuna protested. So are the billions of people they've killed, Captain, Kyung-ho replied. Being intelligent doesn't give you the right to commit genocide against other species. The moral certainty in his voice was absolute. These humans weren't bloodthirsty monsters. They were something far more frightening. They were ethical killers who had thought through the moral implications of their actions and decided that sometimes genocide was the right answer. How many species have you eliminated? Minho asked. Completely? Admiral Hana considered the question. 7 in the past century. All of them were what we classify as extinction-level threats to galactic civilization. 7 entire species, Yuna whispered. And how many species are still alive because we eliminated those 7? Commander Sohi countered. The Krovar alone had destroyed over 40 civilizations before we first encountered them. You keep records of this? Detailed records. Every decision to eliminate a species goes through extensive review by our Xenobiological Ethics Committee. We don't make these choices lightly. Major Do-hyun Choi spoke up for the first time. Would you prefer we had left the Krovar alone? Let them consume your people and move on to the next system? The Villani had no answer to that. There's something else you should understand, Admiral Hana continued. We didn't come here just to save you. We came here because the Krovar are a threat to everyone. Left unchecked, they would have eventually reached human space. It's easier to deal with them here than wait for them to become our problem. You're saying you helped us for selfish reasons? Partially, yes. But also because it's the right thing to do. The two aren't mutually exclusive. The conversation was interrupted by an alert from the bridge. Lieutenant Commander Yanwoo Lim's voice came over the intercom. Admiral, we're detecting hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system. Multiple contacts heading this way fast. Krovar reinforcements? Captain Kyung-ho asked. Negative. These are different ships. Configuration? Unknown, but they're big. 12 vessels, each one roughly the size of our dreadnoughts. Admiral Hana looked at the Villani. Are you expecting anyone? No, Yuna replied. We have no allies in this region of space. The tactical display activated, showing the approaching ships. They were sleek, predatory-looking vessels, all curves and sharp angles. They looked fast and dangerous. Admiral, came another voice from the bridge. The unknown vessels are hailing us. Audio only. Put it through. A voice filled the conference room, speaking in a language none of them recognized. Then a translation program activated, converting the alien words to galactic standard. Human warships, this is Battle Leader Vextar of the Zakari Empire. You will withdraw from this system immediately. This territory is under Zakari protection. Admiral Hana looked at her officers. None of them had ever heard of the Zakari Empire. Unknown vessels. This is Admiral Park of the Terran Defense Force. We are responding to a distress call from the Villani Republic. State your intentions. The Villani are vassals of the Zakari Empire. We are here to collect tribute and conscript workers for our mining operations. Your interference is not tolerated. The Villani looked shocked. We've never heard of any Zakari Empire, Yuna protested. Apparently they've heard of you, Captain Kyung-ho said grimly. Human Admiral, the alien voice continued. You have destroyed valuable bioresources that belong to the Empire. The Krovar were being herded toward our territory for processing. You will pay compensation for this loss. Admiral Hana's expression went cold. Let me understand this. You were deliberately directing the Krovar toward inhabited systems? Of course. Krovar processed biomass is valuable for our industrial applications. The Vela, the space between Thesara Prime and its outermost moon, became a theater of war unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. 12 Zakari warships faced 15 human dreadnoughts in what would become known as the Battle of Thesara, though the humans would later refer to it simply as, that time we had to explain slavery to some idiots. Battle Leader Vextar commanded the Zakari fleet from his flagship, a sleek vessel called the Prophet's Edge. The Zakari were a species that had built their empire on conquest and exploitation, turning weaker civilizations into resource-gathering operations. They were not unfamiliar with warfare, but they had never faced an enemy quite like humanity. Human Admiral, Vextar transmitted, you have one final chance to withdraw. The Zakari Empire has crushed civilizations across 7 sectors. We offer you the opportunity to serve as mercenaries in our fleet rather than die uselessly. Admiral Hana Park's response was calm and professional. Battle Leader Vextar, I'm going to explain something to you. Slavery is illegal under human law. The trafficking of sentient beings is considered a crime against consciousness itself. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system before we classify you as pirates and deal with you accordingly. You threaten us? 12 ships against 15. Your odds are poor, human. 20 seconds. We have fought wars for 1,000 years. Our weapons have burned worlds. 10 seconds. We will take your crews as slaves and sell your ships for scrap. Time's up. All ships, weapons free. Show these slavers what we think of their business model. The first exchange of fire revealed the fundamental difference between human and Zakari military philosophy. The Zakari ships were fast and maneuverable, designed to raid and retreat. Their weapons were precise, meant to disable enemy vessels, for capture rather than destruction. The human dreadnoughts were the exact opposite. They were built to absorb tremendous punishment while delivering overwhelming firepower. Their weapons weren't designed to capture anything. They were designed to remove threats from existence as efficiently as possible. Direct hit on their flagship. Reported Weapons Officer Jinwoo Park from Seoul's Thunder. Their shields are down to 60%. Target their engines, Admiral Hana ordered. We want them alive to answer questions about their slave operations. Their weapons are barely scratching our armor, observed Captain Kyung-ho Kim from the Incheon's Fury. These ships are designed for raiding civilians, not military combat. The Zakari quickly realized they had made a terrible mistake. Their plasma cannons, designed to disable the poorly armed ships of victim civilizations, were having minimal effect on human armor plating. Meanwhile, the human weapons were cutting through Zakari shields like they weren't even there. Impossible, Fextar screamed as another of his ships exploded. Our shields are military grade, our hulls are reinforced. Battle leader, came the panicked voice of one of his subordinates. Their weapons are operating at energy levels we've never encountered. They're not just trying to disable us. They're trying to destroy us completely. All ships, concentrate. Fire on their flagship. Bring down the large one with the human commander. 6 Zakari ships focused their combined firepower on Seoul's Thunder. The massive Dreadnoughts' shields flared and sparked under the assault, but held firm. In response, the Thunder's main guns rotated toward the attacking ships. That tickled, announced Chief Engineer Yan-Woo Kim over the ship's intercom. Shall we show them what real weapons look like? The Thunder's primary plasma array fired a single devastating salvo. 3 Zakari ships simply vanished in balls of superheated gas. The remaining Zakari fleet fell back in terror. What are you? Bextar transmitted, his voice filled with something the Zakari had rarely experienced. Fear. We're humans, Admiral, Hana replied. We're from Earth, and we really don't like slavers. The battle continued for another hour, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Zakari ships were outgunned, out-armored, and completely outclassed by opponents who had learned warfare on one of the most hostile worlds in the galaxy. One by one, their vessels were either destroyed or disabled. When the last Zakari ship surrendered, Admiral Hana ordered boarding parties to secure the survivors. Marine Colonel Nari Song led the operation personally, her troops moving through the enemy ships with practiced efficiency. What they found aboard the Zakari vessels horrified even the battle-hardened human marines. Slave pens filled with beings, from a dozen different species. Children taken from their families. Workers beaten into submission. An entire cargo hold filled with processing equipment designed to break the will of captured populations. Admiral, Colonel Nari reported from the Zakari flagship, you need to see this. These bastards have detailed records of their slave operations. Over 40 systems, hundreds of billions of sentient beings in bondage. Download everything, Hana ordered. We're going to need evidence for what comes next. Meanwhile, aboard Seoul's Thunder, the Villani delegation watched the aftermath of the battle with a mixture of awe and terror. They were beginning to understand that they hadn't just been saved by powerful allies. They had been saved by something far more dangerous. Humans with a moral code. Admiral, Counselor Yuna said hesitantly, what will you do with the Zakari? Survivors? They'll be tried for crimes against consciousness, Admiral Hana replied. The evidence we've found makes it clear that their entire civilization is built on slavery and genocide. That makes them an extinction-level threat. You're going to eliminate their entire species? Not immediately. First, We're going to liberate every slave they've taken. Then we're going to dismantle their empire piece by piece. If there are Zakari who aren't involved in the slave trade, they'll be relocated to non-strategic worlds under human supervision. And if there aren't any innocent Zakari, Admiral Hana's expression was grim. Then there won't be any Zakari. Elder Jisoo looked out at the disabled Zakari ships. You make these decisions so easily. How do you live with yourselves? By remembering that the alternative is letting billions of innocent beings suffer in slavery, Captain Kyung-ho replied. Sometimes the right choice isn't the easy choice. But who gave you the authority to make these decisions for entire civilizations? The question hung in the air for a moment. Then Commander So-hee Lee answered. Nobody gave us the authority. We took it. Because somebody has to, and we're the ones with the biggest guns. That's not justice, Yuna protested. That's tyranny. No, Admiral Hana said firmly. Tyranny is what the Zakari were doing. Tyranny is feeding entire civilizations to bioweapons for industrial profit. Justice is stopping them. But what if you're wrong? What if there's another way? Counselor, Admiral Hana turned to face the Villani delegation directly. In the time we've been having this conversation, approximately 10,000 sentient beings have died in Zakari slave operations. Every day we debate alternatives is another day of suffering for billions of innocents. The weight of that statement settled over the chamber. The Villani were a peaceful people, but they weren't naive. They understood numbers. They understood suffering. What do you need from us? Yuna asked finally. Nothing. This isn't your fight. You're safe now, and you'll remain safe. We'll make sure of that. But we want to help. Admiral Hana studied the Villani counselor carefully. Are you sure? Once you help us with something like this, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see you as purely peaceful again. Our children were going to be fed to monsters by slavers, Yuna replied. I think our age of pure peace ended when we sent that SOS message. Over the following days, the human fleet began what they called Operation Chainbreaker. Using the IDAR intelligence gathered from the Zakari ships, they mapped the entire slave empire and began systematic liberation operations. The 7th Fleet was reinforced by the 8th and 9th Fleets, bringing the human force to 45 dreadnoughts. Additional ships arrived daily as Earth mobilized for what would become the largest anti-slavery operation in galactic history. Communications Officer Minho worked with human intelligence officers to coordinate with slave populations across Zakari, space. Many of the enslaved species had given up hope of ever seeing freedom again. The news that someone was coming to liberate them spread like wildfire through the slave networks. Admiral, reported Commander Hyunsoo Kim from the Intelligence Division. We're getting volunteer messages from 17 different species. They want to help with the liberation operations. Approved. The more help we have, the faster we can shut down this entire operation. The liberation of Zakari space took 8 months. 47 star systems were freed from slavery. Over 600 billion sentient beings were liberated. The Zakari Empire, which had existed for over a millennium, was completely dismantled. Some Zakari survivors were found to be truly innocent of slave trading activities. They were relocated to a single world under human protection, their numbers reduced from billions to less than 1 million. Their military was dissolved, their warships scrapped, their slave trading infrastructure destroyed completely. The galaxy took notice. Word spread through every spacefaring civilization that a new power had emerged from the mysterious Sol system. A power that could destroy entire empires when provoked. A power that treated slavery as a capital offense for entire species. The Velan.